we are having a speaker between 1 and twice a month, once and twice a month. The other weeks will be intramurals. We're mixing intramurals and speakers because we think this is important enough that you all have exposure to lots of options that you can pursue as you approach college. So we have multitudes of speakers in all different areas, and I'm hoping that one of them will be something that you will say, wow, maybe I should consider doing this as a hobby or as a career. So with that, I've asked Mrs. Greg Carr Bridgers to come in and speak with you. Mrs. Bridgers is new to Wakefield this year. She has 2 students, a first and a 3rd grade, 2 boys. And she works for a company called Radius Biosolutions out of Texas. She works out of her home, which is really cool. As far as that, and she's also a wildlife photographer. So between the two, I thought that would be really a neat for you all to hear. So I've asked Mrs. Bridges if she comes and speak to you.
Thanks, Judy, and thank you so much for having me here. So I hope the little bit of my adventure that I talked to you about today is going to inspire you, hopefully, to look outside the box in your own lives and reach for the stars and hopefully have a gift that you give to the world. So here's my story, and I hope you find it slightly interesting. So my dog's name is strange. My first name is Greg Carr. It's a double first name, and it's an old Southern name, so it's bizarre. It's got me in a lot of places, but I hated it when I was your age. So, my little friend that I need to introduce you is a pygmy marmoset, and I named him Leoncito. Pygmy marmosets mate for life, and they live in one tree. And this happens to be the tree that I lived under for 6 months while I was in the Amazon in Peru. And so this little guy would come out with his mate every morning and watch me fall out of my tent and cry and be scared to death of what was in front of me that day. And he would reassure me, he's about this big, that life is pretty cool. And he would put his little fingers in my toothbrush bristles and was fascinated by that. But they eat sap, and so I would dig holes in the tree and so he would come down and sit on my finger and eat sap. So he was my inspiration and the cutest little thing in the world. So he helped me out while I was there. Watch, it's not working. Right? Come on. Okay, so I'm going to do this without words. That's good stuff. Let's see if we'll do this. Okay. So I have a BA in biology from Duke University. I graduated in 1989. I went to Duke because I was fascinated with the sciences, and I wanted to be a doctor. And I thought that Duke would probably give me the best position to apply to medical school. So one advice I give to you when you go to college, find a great advisor. They will help out tremendously. But my advisor, as I graduated from Duke, said, I really think you need to go into the hospital and learn what it's like to be in the healthcare setting, being in and around sick people all day long. Nobody in the family has been a doctor, and you really need to understand what this is like. So I heeded his advice, and I went to Duke University Medical Center and got a specialty degree in clinical chemistry and hematology, and I worked in a special lab for pediatric oncology. And let me tell you, that was brutal. I diagnosed bone marrow and pretty bad leukemias, and then would go and talk to parents and children about their new diagnosis. So it was really, really difficult, and I quickly learned this was not a place for me, unfortunately. I just would cry at night and just would tear me apart. And these children were amazing. It just wasn't my space. And at the same time I was working in the lab with my eyeballs and microscope, I was had some great friends that were from Duke, and we were starting on the weekends to photograph. I'm a wildlife photographer and also a black and white photographer since I was 13 years old. And this kind of seemed like a cool thing to do. Get out of the lab, get out in nature, have a great time. And we did have a good time doing it. So on the weekends, we would go to national parks and film. And these were two guys that were brothers, and they would be on camera, and they would be characters and do funny things and act like animals. And I would video them as well as do still photography. And we quickly made a name for ourselves in national parks. And we then started cutting videos on the weekends in our apartments, and finally we were selling videos. I mean, it just drumrolled into, oh my gosh, we're making money. So we thought, you know what, we better make a business plan. We better, kind of create an LLC and maybe create something bigger than what we're doing right now. So we did. So I became a co-owner of a company called Earth Pictures, and we set out to do wildlife films for children. But we knew that we needed to make a kind of a splash in the community of a very staunch wildlife industry, which was made up of Marty Stafford of the world, National Geographic, Discovery Channel was coming into play at this time back in the early 90s. So we gathered up our funding. I literally cashed in my entire savings account and bought all this great microphone equipment. And we decided to lean on a couple of biologists from Duke to go down to the Amazon. And so Duke kind of came back into my life story to help us out. And so we went down to Peru with a bunch of zoologists and botanists that were doing research on a very pristine part of the Amazon. We came back to the States 6 months later with 40 hours worth of raw footage. We had to shop that raw footage around, sell it. TBS, NBC, CNN, anybody would listen to us. And lo and behold, Maryland Public Television picked us up and gave us some free space in their cutting studio. And we cut film, and we knew that the only way we were going to make a splash in the industry was to go ahead and submit the film to the Wildlife Film Festival. And let me just kind of give you an idea about this film festival. It's done in Jackson Hole, Wyoming, and it's pretty much comparable to the Carr Film Festival. It's where anybody in the industry, big name producers, want to go and look at wildlife films and see if that's the genre they want to plug into their particular show regime. So, needless to say, we entered a couple of categories and we won Best Children's Film in 1993. Literally within 10 minutes after winning the award, we were picked up by Paragon Entertainment and were sold for $1.6 million for 65 episodes. So, and we'll get to know a little bit more about that. My role completely got admonished because I'm not a professional photographer. So Paragon Entertainment came in and said, we really don't have any more use for you. It's really grating my ego. And, ta-ta, here's your money. So I literally leaned back on my biology degree and said, I got to pick myself up. I got to make some money here. And this is just about facing. I cannot go back in the lab. So I got hired by an awesome company, publicly traded company called Stairs Corporation. And I, believe it or not, really found my niche. Was sales and marketing. And I was there for about 7 years, and I was the recipient of the Paragon Award for Sales Excellence, and also a multitude of sales and marketing awards within the company. And thoroughly enjoyed selling. And this is part of the medical industry. This is all sterilization and also purified water stills. So we made an award for injection for IVs, etc. So it tends to really match with what I like to do. And on the weekends, I do photography. So I thoroughly enjoyed this, and then I took some time off to have my two boys and raise my children. And now I am working for, as Judy Yancey said, a company called Radix Biosolutions, where I'm Director and Vice President of Business Development. So this is all sales and marketing. And it's a very tiny little biotech company out of Austin, Texas. And we do a very, very specialized custom assays for drug development, and I'll talk a little bit more about that a little later. So here is me and some other things that I did. So I'm kind of explaining. These are quick. This is other stuff that I was doing. I'm a yoga instructor. I used to be a gymnast when I was little, so this tends to, get going and keep me fit. And I'm also an avid writer, so I'm a fox hunter. And I love marine life and worked at Duke Marine Lab and did some research at Duke Marine Lab for a long time. And so I'm an advanced open water diver. And my adventures through the Amazon, and I could sit here and talk to you for like 6 hours about these stories. Just every day was insane. So I'm writing a book about it right now, and it's called Kiss the Butterfly. It's in early stages of publishing at the moment. And I've been writing for about 20 years. I'm not like you guys, I'm not a very good writer, so it's taken me a while to get the story right. And I have two boys, Jack and Ben, who are here, who are my love of my life. And again, I can talk about them forever, but that's not why we're here. So we'll move on. I'm going to talk about the rest of the talk today about my love of photography. And y'all are welcome to ask me any questions and stop me wherever. And I'm also going to talk a little bit about sciences, which is my passion. So this is Machu Picchu and in Peru, and if you ever have an opportunity to go to Machu Picchu, do it. It's the most spiritual and incredible movie place I've ever been in my life, and if you haven't read about it in your history book, go back and do it. The air is kind of thin there, so it's tough to move around, but our adventure took us from Florida, where everybody's wearing Mickey Mouse ears, to landing in Lima, Peru in 1992. And it happened to be the year that Shining Calf terrorist group were wreaking havoc on tourism. And really, this is the first time I've ever known about terrorism. We all now know it very well and live and breathe it every night on the 6 o'clock news. But then we had no clue. But our hotel was bombed the night before we got there, and everyone was killed. We were put in unmarked cars and whisked away with people shooting guns up in the air. I had never, ever experienced this in my entire life. And the first thing that went through my mind was my mother was going to kill me. And I mean, we just did not know exactly what kind of terror we were in. We were put in these hotels that were horrendous, and we had to beg the embassy to get out of Lima at that time. But once we got to Cusco and got to the Andes, was really a pleasant change of events and really where the adventure started. So this was practically one of my first photographs in Peru. And so my lovely llama, there are llamas that are all over the place. This is a wild llama that was there. And we traveled through the Andes on a school bus, and not a school bus that you think of, on a dirt path that was wet, and I feared for my life every time the guy turned the corner. But we went down to the jungle and took canoes for 5 days up the river, in the Manu River, and we camped for 6 months on a Oxbow lake called Cochacachi. This is an ocelot. There are about 1 ocelot per acre in this pristine part of the Amazon. And it took me forever to get this shot. So I normally sat in cars for about 12 to 14 hours a day to get shots like this. And this was shot with the Nikon F4. This is the day and age, by the way, before digital cameras. So I'm shooting everything with chrome film, and I'm a little bit old school. And this shot, as of yesterday, was in chrome film, and I had put it on CD, so for this presentation. So I'm really way into the 21st century. But he is in a very casual mode, which is very cool. That's what we like in wildlife photography versus a scared mode. And I shot this with a 300mm lens, and I used to prime the whole time I was there. And by the way, we had dry rocks to take away the humidity, and Carolina Biological told us that these rocks would last for about 5 days in the jungle. They lasted exactly 16 hours. That's how humid it was. So we literally sat over a frying pan every night and fried these logs to get them dry again to put back in the camera equipment. So slightly brutal in that sense. This is a juvenile tiger heron, and he is so cool. And it did take very long to shoot down. These photographs have not been doctored, by the way. They're raw. Some of these are a little bit washed out, and I'd like to have a little bit more time with them. But this was on Coach Cashew, and this is the reason why I put this photograph in here, because he got so curious with me, and pretty much every animal that's there has no idea about humans. And they're incredibly curious, even the jaguar. And so this guy flew over to where I was, and I spent a lot of time with him, and he's like, "Man, what do you know?" And so you can see my lens here, and he was way too out of focus, way too close. I just sat back and just let him be curious, kept on my camera for a while, and then he got bored of me and left. But this is an occurrence that happened all the time, and so just it's so hard to even explain what this kind of experiences are like. This is a really cool story. And it goes pretty far. This is his name's Tasman, and he's a giant river otter. When I was there back in the 90s, giant river otters were pretty much extinct. There were less than 500 left in the world. And I happen to be, I can't believe it, but I habituated to a family of 9, and I happen to be the only person in the world that's ever done that. And Tasman was named after a researcher that called me 2 years ago from the University of Frankfurt and said to me that this guy, actually, she'd seen my photographs and she'd seen the documentation, and this particular male was the highest producing male of any male in the Amazon, and I happened to habituate to his family at the time. So she was doing a research study on the socialization of otters and how they create a family life. And I took about 3,000 pictures of this family, and she could document kind of how they dealt with things. But her research basically concluded the fact that younger female otters will take care of the older ones. And so there's a little bit of a caring that's going on in the socialization of otters, which is really cool. Tasman here, I would go out every morning, this is called telescoping, and he would telescope out and give me a call that would say to his family members, she's full, everybody's fine, and they would come around and sniff the boat and sniff my hands and you know, do flips in the water and that sort of thing. He bought me a catfish every once in a while for those people. And we swam in this lake, and this lake is full of piranha and alligators, and so that was really fun. There's all sorts of stories to that too. So if I may make a statement to animals in cages, please don't put a bird in a cage. They are truly magnificent in the wild. And just so happened we were in the Amazon in the dry season, and there are not a lot of fruit-bearing trees at this time, so the macaws would come down and eat clay to supplement their diet, because the clay was rich in minerals. And so what's happening here is Manu, which is a tributary off of the Amazon, would slice through the jungle and kind of erode away the side of riverbanks. And we happened to be in a blind down by the river, and these guys would come on in the morning. Not easy, they're very, very smart. So we had to be on the blind by 4 o'clock in the morning, otherwise they were not going to bed that day, and we couldn't move. And as soon as we moved, this would happen. So they would all fall away. And I love the shot. This happens to be the shot that was on the cover of National Geographic magazine in the winter of 1992. But not my shot, Franz Long's shot it. He was there for 2 weeks, and it took me 2 weeks to get these shots. It took me about a day to do this. Because I had no budget, and he had a lot of money. So there's a big difference. I was sitting in a blind full of, foam ponds around me, so it was not easy. He had scaffolding, but really cool aspect. And all the cat shots that we got, this is in Belize, but we baited mostly the cats. We had guys who told us where they saw fresh tracks, and we would, bring out rats or something, and we would hope that something would come through. These are not triggered, so I'm sitting in a blind taking these photographs. So, this is a little spider monkey, and they were very curious. They come right up to you. They'll take the camera away if you're not careful. They just have no clue that there's anything wrong about it, which is really neat. And then again, this jaguar, I had a guy who told me that they saw fresh tracks, and so I built one quickly, and he came back. Really scary, and I'll be perfectly honest, there's so many times that I'm not breathing, I'm sweating so hard that I'm scared that the photographs wouldn't come clean. And this is not the time I can check on any photographs if they work or not. So I came back not knowing I had taken one photograph, which is really scary. These look like 3 monkeys. There's one that's not a monkey. The middle one is a rainforest weasel. And this is called a Terra. And these little squirrel monkeys are everywhere by the millions. You can't get away from these guys, and they're very curious. And the capuchins are pretty much Wizard of Oz. They have huge canines. We ran out of food the last month we were there, so we became quickly trying to struggle to get bananas and stuff like that, and these guys chase us down the trails, and that's not fun. They're really aggressive and very strong, so they end up winning pretty much every battle. So these are the 2 guys I read. I don't know if y'all recognize them or not. Martin and Chris Crabb. So Crack's Creatures and Sabula Phone. Yeah, so this is. So, just to let you know, this is the pilot for Smooth. So, just to let you guys know, Smooth is a, do you know about that? No. Okay, so Martin and Chris Pratt, Smooth is a family entertainment show on Sprout or PBS, and so this is they went ahead and did 65 episodes, and they had a little camp to run. But yeah, this is our early stages of Martin and Chris Pratt and Smooth, and this is how we all got started. So just to let you guys know. So this happens to be on the trail going to the Salt Lake where the McCall farm, which is a really, really hard trail at 4 o'clock in the morning. So that's why we took a picture, because all of us were crying on the trail. It's really hard to do. And it's about 3 miles straight in. My pack alone with my camera equipment weighed about 80 pounds. And so 80 pounds of scorpions and snakes and ants and all that kind of stuff. And so I've been to Australia, and I did work for CNN for a little while. So a little koala bear, which is on the ground, which is kind of rare. They usually go from tree to tree, but it's kind of rare to see them on the ground with Joey. And this is an early shot of a newborn colt on GT Islands. This is a little wild pony that we did in the very, very beginning. I shot in Montana and Wyoming, so I'm very close to the sky, by the way. I think it's a 50mm lens that I have, so he was like right on top of me, which is a little scary. And I only put out this picture because it's not a very good picture. And I only tell you this because wildlife photography ain't easy. And this is a Tasmanian devil, and these guys are insane. And in the middle of the night, trying to photograph these little guys is about the scariest thing I've ever done in my entire life. They're very random, and they eat packs, and they get very angry at each other. So I'm actually surprised. I'm very proud of this photograph because actually his mouth is in focus. Can't believe it. Because I was so scared the whole time I did this, and every time I learned very quickly that my flash would scare them all away. So I had to figure out how to get enough light in here to keep them there, to get enough photographs. And so I have a little strobe that just went off in a flash, and I have Fuji Chrome 50 film here that's been pushed. So I mean, it's really grainy, and these guys are scary. And I tell you how we got them here is that people in Tasmania thought we were insane. We would go and find roadkill in the day, and this is awful. And we would take a roadkill that was bloody, filled with maggots and everything, and put it on top of our rental car. Trust me, Amos was not happy when we turned the car. And we would just throw all the carcasses on top of the car, and then go to a site where we think the Tasmanian devils would be, and we would throw all the carcasses there. And the car was just filled with blood. It was awful. But anyway, they loved it. And they came, and we shot them for about 2 weeks in Tasmania. So they're very loud, and their jaws can get inverted, so their mouths can be pretty large. And they're not happy that you're there. They're not like the monkeys. They're not very curious. They're pretty mean. Beautiful, extraordinary parakeets, lorikeets, everything flying in the air. To see red and green and amazing birds flying by hundreds in the air, you'll never want to see them in cages. It's just extraordinary. Little tiny, this is a baby anteater eating leaves, and that's the end of my talk for wildlife.